The doctor's words echoed in my head, a chilling premonition relayed to me later by a kind nurse. Your daughter might not make it through the night. A life hangs in the balance, right? You'd think that would be enough to make a parent drop everything, but not mine. When the hospital called my parents, begging them to come as I fought for my life in the ICU, their answer was, a new puppy spa. My sister, Chloe, needed help taking her $1,000 dog for a podicure. That's the moment I knew. This wasn't just neglect. This was a choice. And it became the catalyst for one of the most painful but necessary family revenge stories you can imagine. From the outside, we were the perfect American family. My dad, Mark, was a successful realtor, our town's go-to guy for picket fence dreams. My mom, Susan, was the church administrator, her life a portrait of charity and grace. And then there were her two daughters. Chloe, the younger one, was the golden child, the sun our family orbited. And me, I was Ava, the ghost at the dinner table. I was the responsible one, the high achiever. I got straight A's, won scholarships, and graduated with honors. My parents would offer a tight, polite smile and a quick, "That's nice, dear," before turning their attention back to Chloe, who had just managed to pass a class or decided to try a new hair color. Her smallest whim was a cause for celebration. My biggest victories were footnotes. I remember my 21st birthday. I'd just landed a major internship. My parents handed me a crisp envelope with a $50 gift card inside. Later that evening, they unveiled their gift for Chloe, whose birthday was the following week. A brand new BMW, wrapped in a giant red bow, sat gleaming in the driveway. She's just had a tough semester, Mom explained. She needed a little pick-me-up. I learned to live with the disparity. I told myself it was because I was stronger, more independent. They didn't need to worry about me. I convinced myself this was a form of love, too. This twisted logic was my shield. The truth is, my achievements threatened them. My independence made their role as doting parents to the dependent Chloe feel more vital. I see that now. My entire life was a performance, a desperate attempt to earn the applause that was always reserved for my sister. I know it sounds like something from a movie, but these are the true stories of my childhood, the invisible wounds that set the stage for the ultimate betrayal. I was the scapegoat, the designated place for them to put all their disappointment, so that Chloe could remain perfect in their eyes. The dynamic took a nosedive the day Chloe announced she wanted a dog. Not just any dog, but a purebred Samoyed she'd seen on Instagram. It cost over $3,000. I reminded my mother gently, cautiously about my severe autoimmune disorder. Animal dander, especially from a long-haired dog like a Samoyed, was my biggest trigger. A reaction wouldn't just be hives. It could compromise my breathing. "Oh, Ava, don't be so dramatic," Susan sighed, already scrolling through photos of fluffy white puppies on her phone. "You can just take an allergy pill. Chloe really needs this for her emotional well-being." And just like that, Kaiser the Samoyed became the newest, most adored member of the Wilson family. My parents paid for him, of course, along with a mountain of expensive toys, organic food, and a custom-built doghouse that looked nicer than my first apartment. Visiting home became a minefield. A few months later, my mom called with a surprise invitation for an early Thanksgiving dinner. A spark of hope ignited in me. Maybe they miss me. Maybe things are changing. I bought a new dress and an expensive bottle of wine. The moment I walked in the door, Kaiser bounded toward me, barking. My throat tightened instantly. "He's here?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. "Of course, he's here. This is his home now." Chloe laughed, scooping the dog into her arms and burying her face in his fur. The entire dinner was an ode to Kaiser. His training progress, his cute habits, the upcoming puppy playdates. I tried to talk about a promotion I'd just received at work. My dad nodded absently. "That's great, champ. Say, did we tell you Kaiser learned how to roll over? By dessert, I was wheezing. Red welts were blooming on my neck and arms. I think I need to go, I managed to say, pushing my chair back. My father frowned. Already? You're ruining the evening, it's just a few sniffles. I felt the first sharp sting of what would become a massive family betrayal. It wasn't just that they didn't care. It was that they refused to even see. To them, my physical pain was an inconvenience, a dramatic overreaction designed to spoil their perfect family picture. The drive home was a blur of gasping breaths and rising panic. I stopped at a 24-hour pharmacy, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the box of antihistamines. But it was too late. The exposure had triggered something catastrophic. For the next 2 days, I got progressively worse. This wasn't a normal reaction. On the 3rd day, I collapsed while trying to get ready for work. My vision was tunneling to a pinpoint of black. That's when my colleague, Natalie, found me. She didn't hesitate. She practically carried me to her car and sped to the emergency room. At the hospital, it all became a chaotic swirl of doctors, nurses, and beeping machines. They told me I was experiencing a biphasic anaphylactic reaction. The first wave hit me at my parents' house. The second, delayed wave was shutting down my body now. It was severe. It was critical. As they wheeled me to the ICU, a nurse took my phone to call my parents. I learned what happened next from that same nurse, Ellie, whose shift had ended but who stayed with me because she couldn't bear to leave me alone. She told me the doctor was blunt with my parents. This is Mercy General Hospital. Your daughter, Ava, is in critical condition. We strongly recommend you come immediately. She might not survive the night. There was a pause. Then Ellie heard my mother's voice, strained and annoyed. Tonight? Oh, that's just not possible. My father got on the line. Look, we understand she's having a reaction, but we promised Chloe we'd take her and Kaiser to that new luxury puppy spa. The grand opening is tonight. We can't let her down. The doctor, speechless for a moment, tried again. Sir, I don't think you understand. Your daughter's life is in danger. We'll try to stop by tomorrow, if she's still there. And they hung up. They chose a dog spa over their daughter's potential deathbed. The sheer absurdity, the cruelty of it, was a physical blow. Lying there, tangled in tubes, I realized this wasn't just a story of neglect. A different kind of story began to form in my mind, not a love story, but a revenge story, a story of survival. The next 72 hours were a fight for my life, but in the moments of hazy consciousness, I wasn't alone. Natalie came every day. My colleagues sent a massive bouquet of flowers. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gable, even showed up with a thermos of soup after Natalie tracked her down to ask her to feed my cat. The kindness of these people, colleagues, neighbors, strangers, was a stark, painful contrast to the silence from my own blood. They were my chosen family, stepping into the void my parents had created. And in that void, something inside me shifted. The desperate, pleading little girl who just wanted her parents' approval finally died in that ICU bed. In her place, a woman with a spine of steel began to emerge. On the 5th day, when I was stable enough to sit up, I asked Ellie for a pen and paper. The words poured out of me, not with rage, but with a cold, devastating clarity. I didn't yell or accuse. I simply stated the facts. The years of being ignored, the birthday parties, the condescending remarks, and finally, the puppy spa. I detailed their choice, in plain, undeniable terms. I am not writing this to punish you, I wrote on the final page. I am writing this to save myself. I can no longer set myself on fire to keep you warm. From this day forward, I am stepping away. Do not contact me. The best revenge stories aren't about screaming matches. They're about cold, hard truth and reclaiming your power. On the day of my discharge, I had a plan. Natalie picked me up, and we sat in a coffee shop across the street from the hospital. I told Ellie my parents were planning to visit that afternoon. I asked her to let them into my empty room and to place the sealed envelope on the pillow where my head had been. At 3:15 p.m., I watched from the window as my parents walked into the hospital, a full week after I was admitted. They were about to walk into an empty room and find my final word. It was the beginning of my true recovery. I stayed with Natalie for 2 weeks, my own apartment feeling too much like a cage of memories. The silence from my family was deafening. Part of me, the old Ava, expected a storm furious phone calls, tearful apologies, them showing up at the door. But there was nothing. Just a void. That silence was more damning than any angry words could have been. I started seeing a therapist, Lydia, a brilliant woman who gave my lifelong experience a name: golden child, scapegoat dynamic. It was never about you, Ava, she explained. It was never something you did or didn't do. The scapegoat is often the more independent child. Your strength was a threat to their narrative of being needed parents, a role Chloe filled perfectly. Finally, after a week, the silence broke. A voicemail from my mother. Ava, we got your letter. I think you're being incredibly dramatic and ungrateful. Call us when you're ready to be rational. No apology, no remorse, just blame. Then came an email from my father. It was a masterpiece of non-apology. I'm sorry for how you feel, he wrote. But you're being unfair. We were always proud of you. Proud? They didn't come to my college graduation because Chloe had a date and needed help picking an outfit. His words were hollow, a transparent attempt to smooth things over without taking any real accountability. My therapy sessions were teaching me one of the most critical life lessons. Their reaction was their responsibility, not mine. I had spent 26 years managing their feelings, making excuses for them, absorbing their neglect. No more. I replied to my father's email with a few simple sentences. Thank you for the email. I need time and space to heal. Please respect that. I didn't expect a response, and I didn't get one. I was finally learning to be okay with the silence. It was no longer a void of their absence, but a space I was filling with my own healing, my own peace. The confrontation I was both dreading and expecting happened on a Saturday, 6 weeks after my hospital stay. I was back in my own apartment when the buzzer rang. I looked through the peephole and my heart hammered against my ribs. It was them, Mark and Susan. The old Ava would have buzzed them in, her stomach churning, ready to apologize for their feelings. The new Ava took a deep breath, centered herself, and opened the door but stood blocking the entrance. Ava, my mother began, her voice trembling with forced emotion. You look well. What are you doing here? I asked. My voice was calm, neutral. It unnerved them. We need to talk, my father said, stepping forward. This has gone on long enough. You can't just cut off your family over one little misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. The word sent a flash of white-hot anger through me. But I held my ground. I asked for space. Showing up unannounced is not respecting that. Respect? Boundaries? Susan scoffed, as if I'd spoken a foreign language. We're your parents. We don't need an invitation. Actually, you do, I said firmly. That's what a boundary is. The conversation went in circles. They tried every tool in their arsenal. Guilt, after all we've done for you. Gaslighting, that's not how it happened. And appeals to family loyalty. Chloe misses her sister. But nothing worked. The hooks they used to have in me were gone. The desperate need for their approval had vanished, replaced by the quiet confidence of self-worth. I am closing the door now, I announced after 15 minutes. Please do not come back without calling first. And if I say I'm not ready, you need to accept that. This isn't over, Ava, my father warned, his face red with frustration. You're right, I said. looking him straight in the eye as I slowly closed the door. This is just the beginning. I leaned against the closed door, my body trembling, but my spirit soaring. That moment, closing the door, was the peak of my journey of overcoming adversity. I had finally chosen myself. 6 months have passed. I sit here writing this in my new apartment, in a new city. I needed a clean break, a place with no ghosts. My company was amazing, letting me transfer to a different branch office. The physical scars of my ordeal have faded, but the internal transformation is the real story. My relationship with my parents is one of distant, managed civility. We speak on the phone once a month. The calls are short, superficial, and I no longer hang up feeling empty or inadequate. I have accepted they are who they are. My forgiveness for them isn't about reconciliation. It's about releasing myself from the prison of hoping they would change. The biggest surprise has been Chloe. Your letter. It broke something open in her, she told me on the phone one day. 2 months after the showdown at my door, she moved out of our parents' house. She got a full-time job. And she rehomed Kaiser with a family that had a huge yard. I realized I only wanted him for the attention, she admitted, her voice thick with a shame I'd never heard from her before. It wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to you. All those years, I just took and took because that's what I was taught. I'm so sorry, Ava. Our relationship is slowly rebuilding, brick by honest brick. We are learning to be sisters without the distorted filter of our parents' favoritism. But the most beautiful change is the family I've built. My chosen family. Natalie is my rock. Mrs. Gable and I have weekly phone dates. I've joined a hiking group and made new friends who value me for who I am, not what I can do for them. These people, who showed up when my own blood walked away, are my proof that family is not about shared DNA. It's about shared love, respect, and the consistent choice to be there. My near-death experience was brutal, but it was also a gift. It burned away the illusions and left only the truth. My goal now is that my experience becomes an inspirational story for anyone who feels unseen, for any scapegoat who is tired of fighting for crumbs of love. Your worth is not up for debate. In the end, the letter I left on that empty hospital bed wasn't an act of revenge against my parents. It was an act of rescue for myself. It was the moment I stopped asking for a seat at their table and decided to build my own. I learned that true family aren't the people who share your blood, but the people who show up when you're bleeding. They're the ones who hold your hand, not because of obligation, but because of love. My journey taught me that my value was never something I had to earn. It was mine all along, buried under years of trying to be good enough. For anyone watching this who recognizes their own reflection in my story, the one who tries too hard, loves too much, and is always left feeling like they're not enough, please hear me. You deserve more. You are worthy of love and respect exactly as you are. Now I have to ask you guys, and I want you to be honest in the comments. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Am I wrong for drawing such a hard line and cutting them off? Or was it the only way to save myself?